and welcome tonight to our January NATS chat, the state of NATS. I was trying to come up with a clever title since it's January and the traditional state of the nation. I thought I would draw from that. And I'm so happy to introduce people that are, I'm sure, familiar to you. Alan Henderson, our Executive Director of NATS, and Carole Blankenship joining us tonight for the first time. She's the Vice President of NATSAA and helps in the organization of the competitions with the with our NATS. And then, of course, my dear David Sabella-Mills, my co-moderator. So welcome, everyone. I really hope tonight that we'll have a conversation and hear from our members your observations about the organization, the conferences, NATS chapters, Vocapedia, a remarkable new resource on our website, competitions, and other topics that you might want to bring up. So to begin with, I'm going to turn it over to Alan for just a moment to give a presentation and then kind of give an overview of the organization right now.
Well, it's good to be with you tonight. I appreciate the invitation to talk just a few minutes about NATS. I've got a really short presentation. Does David need to say something before we start?
Yes.
David
will give a little tutorial.
Sure. How are you all? For those of you who are new to this technology, I just want to alert you to the fact that if you have a microphone, you will be able to ask your questions aloud. Right now, I'm in control, or we are in control of muting your microphone. When you would like to ask a question, there is a little column next to your name with a hand symbol on it. If you click that column, it will virtually raise your hand and alert us to the fact that you have a question, and then I will unmute your microphone and you can ask your question aloud. If you would prefer not to use your own microphone for whatever reason, or your microphone is not working or present, then you can also type in a question into the question box, which is also down either the right or left-hand corner of your screen. So you may do so either at any time. Just to let you know also, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's it. That's it. Just how to ask a question, and we will mute or unmute your microphone as needed. Thank you so much. That's it.
Great. I think, let's see, here we go. Let me see if I can get this going right.
Those are not good sounds, are they, those honks?
I think that may be my email doing that.
Oh, okay.
I thought I shut my email down, but so it may do that a little bit. Sorry about that. But really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I've got a few slides, and I'm sure hopefully that will generate some questions among many of you, and you can feel free to chime in as we go along, and Kari can interrupt me if there's a particular question. I thought it'd be interesting, since we just ended the year, to just give you a little snapshot of our membership. At the end of 2014, we ended our year with 7,355 members, and that's a little slight increase from 2013. We had 600 new members in 2014, which is great, and also 333 reactivated members, which means that there are people that have been members in the past but were not member in the most recent year prior to this. So that's a really strong increase of new and reactivated members, 17% increase from that number this time last year. And we had about 659 lapsed members at the end of the year, which is never great. Every organization has some lapsed members, but that number is lower than this time last year. So that's a positive. We're going in the right direction with lapsed members and the right direction with total members. But I want to encourage you to encourage all your friends to renew, and those you know, and commit to personally recruiting a couple of members this year. I find that a lot of our new membership growth happens from personal contact and sharing your excitement about being a part of our organization. And most of all, just participate yourselves and be active and a strong participant. We had a
Aren't there, Alan? There are different levels to the membership. For instance, I have young teachers.
Sure, we have we have, of course, full members. We have associate members, and some of the associate members are younger teachers who haven't been teaching very long or don't teach below a certain level that's in the membership guidelines. We're also talking about, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we're talking about adding a category or two of membership. That's in discussion among the board about some possibilities there. And so there are, we also have affiliate members. We have some businesses that are in our industry that are members. We have some libraries and schools that are members as institutional and affiliate members. So we had a great conference. Some of you probably were there this summer. We had record attendance. We had almost 1,000 people. We were just a few shy of that, and which was a great opportunity for that many of us to gather together. We had our first national student auditions, the other competitions that we'll talk about later. We really had some really high-quality presenters and sessions, and just a really great variety. And of course, Boston was a great city for us to be at as well. And so really, we really left Boston with a lot of great energy. And we also, all those sessions are available to everybody on our new Live Learning Center that you can link to from the main page of the NATS site. And so I encourage you to kind of go check those out if you weren't there, or if you were there and you want to look at some other, re-look at some sessions or see some you missed. We're planning already for 2016 in Chicago, right downtown on the Magnificent Mile, the Marriott. And just a couple of reminders, the presentation proposals are due in June. So we still have several months to get a great presentation proposed. We have a lot of presentation slots for breakout sessions. And sometimes even a proposal that somebody makes intends to be a breakout session fits right into something we're trying to emphasize so well that it sometimes has ended up as a plenary session. So I encourage you to be a part of that and propose a session, propose topics, either for presentations or poster papers. We have some confirmations that are in final stages. I do know that Dr. Robert Bastian is going to be with us. He has his office in Chicago, and he's going to be doing our voice science sessions this time, he and a couple of colleagues. And most of you know him as a leading ENT and surgeon, and he's doing some very innovative things. I think he'll be a great follow-up to the great session we had in Boston with Dr. Zeitels. And I can't say who our main presenter is, our main artist is going to be yet, but I know everybody's going to be very excited about this person. We've also we've got a verbal commitment, but I've got to wait till we get all the contracts ready. But also, I know we're going to be doing some very exciting things with the Chicago Lyric Opera as part of the conference, and so Chicago really provides us a really wonderful, rich environment to explore a lot of different aspects of our profession. So it's going to be very exciting. Karen Brunson is a wonderfully creative, organized leader for the committee, and it's just full of wonderful ideas, so it's going to be great. Some of you may have seen Vocopedia, but I want to encourage you to use it and share it with your students and your colleagues. We don't really have time for me to go visit it tonight, but it's very simple to use, and it really has been something I've really worked hard to bring to fruition because it's been a passion of mine and many of us in NATS with the explosion of information that's out there available to us, that we want to be able to go to a trusted source that we can filter through all of the morass of information, both good and not so good, that's out there on the internet. And it also is an opportunity for you as members to share your expertise, share links to resources that you find extremely valuable. And there's a place for you to submit those, and those get reviewed by members of our Voice Science Committee, and then they get added to the resource. Journal of Singing, of course, remains the leading journal of our profession. Dick's doing a great job as our editor. One new thing that's coming down the pike is a collaborative pianist column, and Margot Garrett has agreed to be the editor of that column, and so we're really excited about that addition that's going to be coming later this year to the Journal of Singing. And you've seen some other new columns pop up, and also some new faces as associate editors of some of those columns. But again, it's another opportunity for our members to submit articles to the Journal of Singing, and that process is all on the website. You can always talk with Dick. He's great at working with people to get their articles ready for submission. One interesting fact is that now we have over 2,000 of our members who subscribe electronic only to Journal of Singing, and so we're going to continue to be working on some enhancements, online enhancements to the journal, in the way of supplements to articles, links to resources that are in articles, but also try to beef up that with that many of our members who have selected electronic only. It's good from one standpoint in that we don't have to print hard copies of as many journals, but we also want to make that a valuable and a rich access point to Journal of Singing. And we have a complete archive of every article in Journal of Singing on the site when you sign on as a member in the member-only area, and you can search it from the front without being signed on, but if you signed on then as a member, you can immediately access any article you find. It's a great research tool. Our new book series is great. We have 2 of those out, music theater and rock and roll, and jazz should be out later this year. And then we have some others in the works. We will be announcing this week that Matt Hoke is going to be the new series editor of this series. Karen Hall, who was the founding series editor, has had some other professional opportunities interrupt her ability to continue being series editor, and so we've asked Matt to take that over. And so he's working with a variety of authors on future volumes of this, and it's been received real well, reviewed real well, and it's doing pretty well from a sales standpoint, so we're real excited about these titles. Intermezzo, I really want to encourage you and all your friends and students and colleagues to subscribe to Intermezzo. You're getting this every week. It comes every Tuesday in your email box. Make sure you whitelist it on your email if it's going in your spam folder or whatever. But it's really freely available to all, and it's a really great, I think, resource. We try to aggregate news from our field and from our profession in a variety of ways, articles from the New York Times and leading newspapers, other resources we find, audio, video, interviews, and a really eclectic mix of things related to the singing profession. And you can also go to the link that's on our site for Intermezzo, and you can view every past Intermezzo. So if you're ever, if you remember reading an article linked from Intermezzo and you can't remember what it was, and you can always go back there and review all the past issues. Somebody asked me to mention about SNATS chapters, and we have quite a few SNATS chapters around the country. We're approaching 100, I think, SNATS chapters, And it's really very simple to start one. All the info for that is online under the SNATS link on our website. A lot of people don't know that independent teachers can also start a chapter. It doesn't have to be at a university. And one of the things our board is discussing and our membership committee is discussing this year is some discussion about initiating an official kind of student membership in NATS. And so I think you'll be hearing more about that this year. There'll be some discussion about that, and so that will be formalized at some point, hopefully. We're trying to kind of, one of the important things for that we feel for our organization is that we provide the entrance opportunity at the appropriate place, and then once the entrance opportunity is taken advantage of as a student, that of course we are able to move people along the membership timeline to full membership in NATS. And so that's something that our board has been very excited about discussing. I also remind people that we have a small grant pool for SNATS chapters to apply to for small grants for projects they want to undertake. We have some SNATS chapters and some really interesting things. You should be able to go to the SNATS page and look at the SNATS newsletter that Mitra Sadapur puts together, and you can see some of the activities that some of those chapters are doing, and it includes also a complete list of all our SNATS chapters around the country. We have Carole with us as well, and I know that she's done a wonderful job not only with NATSAA, which is her official title, but also accepting kind of coordination duties of some of our other competitions that she has some help running, thankfully. And so is this a good place to either take some questions or kind of move on to Carole and let her talk a few minutes about some of those?
Sounds great, Carole. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about the different competitions?
Sure. Well, everyone's quite familiar with our NATSAA competition for pre-professionals, those who are ready for a career in the classical world. But we also have our National Music Theater competition, as you see there. It's our second year for that was our Boston conference, and that's been very successful. We hope that that will continue to grow and bring in some great singers. And then this summer was our first, well, our Boston conference was our first ever national student audition. And the students came from, they were finalists in their own region. And then sent in their, as most of you know, did a YouTube audition and were sent on then to the semifinals, which Boston Conservatory very graciously hosted for us, and then the finals at the conference in Boston. So that was our first time for that, but this is going to be a yearly competition instead of every other year like the other competitions. The National Student Auditions will be held at the conference, and then the next year, as you see there, it will be held this summer in Greensboro at the workshop, summer workshop for us. So that's very exciting. We had a great turnout for that. It made for a very exciting conference, lots of great singing and many, many things to attend. But it all went very well. And I think something I wanted to point out today, which I don't think is maybe is pointed out enough, is the awards are terrific. The monetary awards for these auditions are pretty wonderful, and I think that we could talk about that more with our colleagues and with our students. So I'll be happy to talk about that some more.
The competitions really represent to some degree how NATS has changed the last 10, 15 years, I feel, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation, and in fact that leads me to what initiated the intent of this conversation was at the Boston conference, which I thought was such a grand success. And in talking to my other colleagues, we all agreed that it was one of the most successful. So I'd love to know from our chatters, those of you who are at the conference, please, raise your hand, your virtual hand, and share with us if you were, there, what was your favorite part of the conference for you. And I'm hoping this is where our chatters will come in. And while we're letting them get brave, there's a little virtual hand that you can click on, and then we will ask if you either want us to open up your mic or you can type your question, and David is helping to manage that. And while we're waiting for that, for me, I think it's the diversity of the breakout sessions. All right, Alan, I mean, that's been really very intentional, hasn't it been?
Well, it has. I tell everyone that because there's no way we can cover every single topic of every conference.
Right.
But I regularly say to people that if you are at 3 conferences, you should see everything under the sun, just about. And so we are very intentional in the mix of sessions that we have, and we're not only thinking about one conference itself, we're thinking about a series of conferences over several years and trying to rotate through the major topics and also stay on top of the new things that are happening. So it's there's a lot of science and a lot of art to putting all of those that grid together every time, as well as trying to stay, abreast of and taking advantage of opportunities that are presented to us with certain individuals that might be able to join us and other things like that.
We do have a question.
I see a question.
Yes, it was from Jean Del Santo. Let me say, once your hand is raised, keep it up, and we'll lower the hand when we activate the mic. Jean, if you have a question, your mic is live.
There. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is not about the convention, but this is an issue that is very troubling to me. And I know our NATS officers probably had little to do with it. And that's the Federal Trade Commission's regulation about not proselytizing and going after other people's students. Working in academia, this is a real issue because students make a commitment to work with a teacher when you're in academia and often receive scholarship, and yet there's a lot of ghost teaching going on, sometimes by other NATS members. And there was also a very long blog on David Jones' website several months ago about ghost teaching and, quite frankly, encouraging it.
He actually encouraged it.
Absolutely. Yes. And there were many posts, but most of them were for it instead of against it, saying if you can't get what you need from your teacher in academia, just go outside and get it. And Shirley Verrett did it when she was at Juilliard.
Alan?
Well,
I think it's one thing if you have a student in academia and you want to make a referral to another colleague outside because somebody who is a professional colleague of yours and you want your student to work with that person with your knowledge and consent to further their vocal or musical development. I think it's another thing when one of your colleagues goes behind your back knowingly and has students working with them concurrent to the time they're working with you, students who are in academia on scholarship. And then you bring it to your director of the School of Music who says, well, they're adults, we really can't do anything about this. However, in the faculty salary and merit committee documents that we have to submit every year for salary and merit, one of the parameters and one of the things on which the salary is based is student successes. So whose student are we talking about?
Yeah. Well, let me just talk a little bit about the FTC just briefly. Obviously, everybody was communicated with about some of the intricacies of that, engagement with the FTC and our board's engagement on the topic. I will not go into all those details, but I will say that in the end, in talking with our attorneys and negotiating with the FTC about this, they were very confident that we would be able to address all the issues that we brought up, all the kinds of instances that we brought up to them with other, using other points of our ethics policy other than the one that they required us to strike. And the real issue with that specific clause was that it wasn't specified enough. It wasn't, even though we always have interpreted that phrase in a negative light. In other words, you will not, some of the instances you just described, Gene, are the kinds of things that we would obviously not want to happen, stealing students behind people's backs and those kinds of things. You define, however, the word proselytize on its own, as stated, does not always have a negative connotation, as we know. It can have a positive connotation. And so that was their rub with it, and unfortunately there were some other organizations that had set precedents for this specific clause prior to us being deleted. So it's going to be very difficult for us to say, well, can't we just revise that statement and still kind of leave it the same?
I would be interested to know if there is a similar instrumental organization to NATS, and if they had to go through this same procedure and what their policy is.
I'm not aware of I'm aware of some like American String Teachers Association, for instance. I'm not specifically aware of their specific ethics policy or if they even have one. I do know that MTNA, for instance, has one, and so does NISTA, for instance, and so and by the way, since all of those three have a similar, this is part of the issue, is that from history, when some of these other organizations were started, they borrowed basically some of the language from each other's ethics policies, and so we had some of the same clauses. And the FTC just happened to find us because they were dealing with MTNA on the same issue. And I will say that it was the board's determination, and it was our lawyer's advice to just strike it, but also with the caveat that he felt confident that we would still be able to address this type of ethics issue with other clauses, because we have the clause that says we will be professional and et cetera, and it's not professional to do things like we're talking about. And so there is a specific process in our bylaws. We're in the process of beefing up a little bit the ethics page on our site so that the process for filing an ethics complaint is more clearly delineated right there on that page, and provide some help to our members who are dealing with various issues they think might be ethics issues by other members.
Well, I was told by my School of Music administrator that I couldn't even use the word ethics.
Well, I can't speak for people's administrations, but every member has recourse if they wish to have it.
I've not been able to find it. I've not been able to find it.
If you go to the bylaws if you go to the bylaws page, I believe it's section 5 of the bylaw, Article 5, section 2 or 5. It's in the membership area, and it talks about the ethics issue. And how to file an ethics complaint if you want to file one. And there's a very specific process for that. I will say that we get lots of inquiries about ethics issues, and very few of them actually end up with an official hearing before the ethics committee. A majority of them, thankfully, actually, are resolved prior to that in a positive manner. Often it's education, people not realizing they shouldn't do certain things, or just the fact that they've been caught, for lack of a better word, or it's been highlighted that this issue is happening, solicits an apology and a change of behavior by that individual. So we do, I think, have an effective process that allows us to work through those issues when they're brought to us. And so I would encourage you to look at the bylaws. That's one reason we're beefing up the ethics page, to try to put it all in one place to help our members when they come to that. We just haven't quite gotten it all together and put up yet.
May I ask a
Thank you.
question?
I appreciate that. And I was not aware of the bylaws. I just looked at the ethics things. I never looked that far in the document. So I will follow up on that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, David.
I'd like to follow up on that, Jean, because I think you bring up a very good and important point. You know, I work at a couple of institutions, but I primarily work privately. And so I've been on both sides of that coin, where either I will get a private student into an institution and then they are studying with the teacher of that institution, or vice versa. And I can't speak to what your institution's rules are about that, but I've always opted to be completely upfront. I will say, I will contact the other teacher, whoever it is, on whatever side of the coin I'm on, and go, hi, I'm also working with this person. Are we team teaching? Are we on the same page? Can we get on the same page? And I think if an open dialogue happens, I've never been confronted with someone who shuts me down. It's always been, hey, I'm glad to hear that. Let's work together. And if we can approach it as a team teaching philosophy, I think it works very beneficial for the student, even in a cognitive learning tool, because if you're on the same page and they're getting slightly different vocabulary, it actually increases the student's ability to process it. You know, so I think
I totally agree
on how we're open
I totally
to
agree with what
communication.
you're saying. I totally agree with what you're saying, and it is the openness that you're talking about that makes it beneficial for both the teachers and the students. In my case, that was not. It was deliberately hidden by both the students and the NATS teacher.
And unfortunately, I think that's, I mean, it does happen, and you're not alone, of course, in that case, and it put, most of all, more than anything, it puts students in a difficult position. They're not able to be completely open with one of their teachers, or even both of them, if they're in this situation, and it sets a bad precedent. It encourages bad professional behavior on their part as a student and as a future potential teacher as well. And so we really do have to be proactive, and we do, I think, when the case, you know, when times are warranted, we have to be proactive and defensive in our own of our own professionalism, and be active in that. And I realize that we're not all equally supported by our administrations either if we're at an institution, and so it's also important, and I would encourage you to feel free to encourage administrators to contact me about some of these issues. I've talked to many chairs and deans in the past about various personnel issues related to this, or tenure issues for people, to try to help them understand our profession better, and those things generally help. Obviously, it requires that person to take action, to contact me, or to contact somebody who they really have to have the desire to want to be clear about it.
Thank you. I would never have thought about that, but that's good to know that you're there as a resource.
Sure.
Thank you, Jean, for bringing up that topic. We have a couple questions. Barbara Wilson Arbolita, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, is wondering if there's a particular theme for 2016 for the conference in Chicago.
I would say we've kind of, as an organization, moved away slightly from a set theme for the national conference. As we've expanded so many the topics and the breadth of topics that we try to address, I think we found that it's easier for us to throw out a few ideas of things. You'll find some things in the call for presentations about some specific ideas for topics, but that's by no means meant to be limiting necessarily. I think you'll find there's going to be some emphasis on the aging voice in Chicago due to some interest of Karen's and interests of some others, and it's a theme that we haven't addressed actively in the last. We didn't address it really strongly in Boston for sure, and so I think that's a topic we'll find that will be addressed quite a bit in various sessions. So I would just leave it at, I think we've kind of moved away from the idea of having some overarching theme statement.
Well, there's so many. I mean, now we're incorporating classical, which was the predominant genre, but now we also include musical theater and even pop rock and
Right.
injured singers, of course, which is my interest, and acoustics, and the conference is just, our organization has changed dramatically in the last even 10 years, I would say, wouldn't you? Certainly 20.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the theme is all of the hot topics of the voice right now. We have another question. Bruce Moore, he just wanted to know the dates, actually, of the Chicago conference.
Dates are the 8th through the 12th of July in 2016.
Okay.
That's the week after July 4th in Chicago.
And do we have anyone in the audience who is at the Boston conference that wants to just share some thoughts? Or Carole, I would love to come back to you for a moment and what your observations were from that conference.
Well, it was, there was so much to offer, so many things to choose from, that you could start at 7 a.m. and go to about 11 p.m. every day for 4 days. And there was just, and as you said, so many varieties of music, the varieties of styles. It was incredible. The musical theater presentations were wonderful, the auditions. And the student auditions, I thought it was interesting that because of the national student auditions, we had an opportunity for participants, our members, to judge while they were there. Boston Conservatory, we used probably 60 of our own members who were there for the conference to judge that competition, and we took volunteers from all over the country, and that was an interesting change to what we've done in the past. So it really was just a really busy conference with so much to offer. And the concerts were fabulous.
They were fabulous. I see Barbara, it looks like, has a question.
I'll unmute your microphone. Barbara, you're live.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. I was just commenting again on the conference. I liked that we were able to finally have a higher level discussion about contemporary music and rock and pop. I do teach primarily pop, rock, and musical theater, and I felt, I've seen the organization over the time I've been a member really developing in this regard, and things have really been changing, which is wonderful. And I felt like this was the first conference I've been to that we were really able to have higher level discussions. It wasn't all just introductory courses there seemed to be more members who already had a familiarity with the genre and the requirements of the genre, so that I feel like we're kind of moving to a new level in that regard in being able to have more different types of music represented, and that people have a higher level of knowledge when they did. And that was a really nice thing to see this year.
Barbara, how long have you been a member of NATS?
Oh, it's like 8 or 10 years, I guess. I just, actually at the end of the conference, I just stepped down off the Boston board. I just finished up as the Boston chapter president. And, you know, it was a great experience, you know, being part of that, and then having it culminate in the conference, and really just seeing how far the organization has come, even since I was, you know, the whole time I was on the board. It's really very rewarding too, you know.
Did I understand you to say that you mostly teach pop rock?
Primarily, yeah, pop rock and musical theater. Mm-hmm.
Did you come from a classical background?
I had to study classical music, but truly I am a native language speaker of pop rock. That is what I've always focused on. And when I was younger, you know, I was in high school in the early 80s, and there really was nobody to go to. And, you know, this is one thing that I feel very passionate about, because, you know, I feel like I somehow knew, I think there was a budding voice teacher in me all along, I somehow knew that I shouldn't be singing Bonnie Tyler and feeling fuzzy afterwards, you know. And I would work on that on my own, but it's not something I could work on with my teacher at the time. There really was nobody. And even when I was in college, it was progressive for my teacher to let me sing some musical theater pieces in my senior recital, you know. So to come from that space and to see where NATS is now, and the ability of our students, and even I'm a voice therapist as well, you know, my patients who I'm discharging from therapy, being able to refer them to somebody who's competent so that they won't get injured in the first place or won't get re-injured, it's really been a wonderful thing, and a great change.
So you're a speech-language pathologist as well?
Yeah, I'm working at Mass Eye. Mm-hmm.
How interesting, because 10 years ago, to become a NATS member, that was really in the early stages, it seems to me, of opening up the non-classical, the CCM world. So you were, right. That's brave of you. I mean, really.
Well, Robert Edwin was the one who convinced me. I didn't think I belonged, and he said, absolutely, you must join. So I did, and I'm really glad that I did.
Well, thank you for sharing some of your comments tonight.
Sure.
David, why don't I would love for you to share your feedback from the Boston conference.
I would love to do that, and then I actually do have a topic I wanted to bring up also. I had a great time in Boston. One of the things that I have learned to quietly expect at the conference is everything that happens out in the hallways. I have to say, the collegial camaraderie, the conversations, the instantaneous research and sharing of recent, common research, and the budding of ideas, and just it's sort of like a kickoff for the next 2 years. I know for NATS it's the ending of a presidency and the launch of another, but it seems to me that when I go to the conference, it's like going through the little matchbox, re-energizer, the car goes through the thing and it picks up speed again. That's what the conference is for me, that it just sort of energizes me into the next year or two. I wanted to ask all the esteemed colleagues here something that I perceive to be the next big challenge, and if there's a way for NATS as a national organization to contemplate this, or are we I just don't know the answer to this, but I am finding that social media has invaded the studio in a way that is kind of insidious. Everyone wants to be a YouTube star. Everyone thinks they're going to be that YouTube star in a moment. And there are enough of them now. In fact, I have to tell you the shocking statistic is there are more YouTube stars that you can name now who've crossed over to like reality TV stars or even Broadway. Well, I'm speaking specifically Broadway. There are more YouTube and reality stars on Broadway than there are people discovered at a legitimate equity open call. And that's kind of shocking to me. And so I just don't know, other than talking with my own students diligently about it, but is there any sort of national movement or motion to address how to get these kids grounded into, the long term of the work and the study and to sort of maybe curb the instantaneous gratification that social media provides? And I leave it to you to talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I mean, I'll start. A lot of this, of course, is an outgrowth of reality TV in general. The American Idols, all these other things, and we've had multiple people on these shows that study with NATS members, so that's a great thing. We don't get enough attention from that, however, but I'm glad that to see my friends and NATS post when their students going to be on, and it's just great to hear some of the successes that some of our NATS members and their students are having in this particular regard. But I do think those kinds of things, and also YouTube kind of sensations and some of these other aspects of social media have impacted our profession and continue to do that. Primarily, I see it as I can be a star in 30 minutes or 3 weeks or whatever, and obviously we know that it's for the longevity of your profession and your career, it's beneficial for you to take the time to learn the right technique and learn, not take the shortcuts and do the little Band-Aid voice tricks that can get you through a show or two, but not 8 shows a week, month after month, or even multiple opera, productions as well. And so one of the things we obviously, that was a tangential reason for creating Vocopedia, was so we can filter some things, and I really see that. I'm hoping as that grows and as that broadens, we will be able to pull down and pull into Vocopedia other categories besides just voice science type related things, and broaden that into things about good examples of using social media, good examples of YouTube things, quality over quantity, and strong and advocating for those kinds of things. I know all of us probably here tonight stress with our students the ideas of keeping their social media profiles as clean as possible, relative to their performance, but also their language and all these other things, because we all know that employers and people who might cast them might take a look, and do take a look at some of those profiles when they can, and they see things, and that affects their decisions from time to time. And we do need to find ways to continue to advocate for that, and to create tools, and maybe that is some kind of tool we need to create, is some kind of not only kind of social media kind of advice for various levels, whether it's students or teachers, but also this idea of advocating what it really takes to have a career, and what what we believe it really takes to have a career. We know people have careers in a variety of ways, but how do we advocate for the effective use of that?
Alan, can I ask you a question? I don't know if this exists. It might be part of Wikipedia. Please forgive my ignorance. But is there a way that NATS could possibly use social media itself? For instance, there's 1,000,001, Study Voice with Me YouTube channels, and as we've probably all seen, not many of them have really valid or career-minded, acoustic, anatomy-minded information. Is it possible NATS might sponsor either a YouTube channel or some other social media outlet with, let's say, Teachers of the Intern program, and put some things up online where these kids who are thirsty for this information can actually go to a legitimized source like NATS? Maybe we should have a greater YouTube presence ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly a possibility and something we probably should be making waves in. I do know that we really want people to submit things to Wikipedia, for instance, video examples of all kinds of things. Maybe it's exercises, maybe it's certain techniques, maybe it's some kind of explanation of some genre, or and make those yourself and make and submit them. And we really are encouraging that. And all you have to do is click the submit a resource button on Wikipedia. And I really, especially when we're talking right now, I think what we really envision Wikipedia to have is some of those like basic kinds of explanations of things. I don't think you can submit a simple enough resource. In other words, we really vision Wikipedia being for the masses, not for the profession. And so as people begin to think about that more and create videos, they can be 5 minutes, they can be 15 minutes, they can be 20 minutes. There's not really necessarily a limit, but just being aware that every resource that's submitted is going to go to the Voice Science Committee, and it's going to be kind of checked over for terminology, and they're going to look at it, and they're going to either just say thanks and post it. They might go back to somebody and say, we really love this resource, but we really feel like the best term for X that you used is Y, from the standpoint of where the profession is right now. And that person has the choice to kind of fix it and resubmit it, and then it goes up. And of course, the third option is we will inevitably get some things that aren't usable for whatever reason. They're not appropriate for that venue, etc. But I really hope people will use it, because I do think also we can repurpose things that are on Wikipedia in the genre, in the places like YouTube and some of the other social media things, which then of course pulls people back into Wikipedia and refers them back to find that resource. But also then whenever you're on a resource in Wikipedia, every resource is categorized, and so it should pull up on the right side, here are other things that are like this thing you're viewing now. So it leads them to other places.
I think the answer is the Wikipedia. Wikipedia needs to have its own YouTube channel and direct everybody back to Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We have a lot of other questions. Kari, you've addressed a few in the question box. Do they want to ask them, or are you going to read them?
I think let's just, since it's right on along your topic, Kathy Aldrich says, I would be interested to see how social media impacts the quality of performance and longevity in Broadway as well as pop rock fields. And she says, sounds like a good research topic. So I agree. Keep us posted on that, Kathy. And then
Kathy,
saw, did you guys see my colleague Sharon? Yeah. Sharon Buck has her hand raised.
Yes, I can unmute it.
Oh.
That's right. Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is, perhaps I missed the first part of the presentation, so maybe I missed something, unfortunately. I wanted to know when NATS will update your copyright permissions to allow use of copied music. In the professional scene, as you might know, copied music is used all the time in music theater auditions and such in the real world. And as an accompanist, I know how cumbersome books can be. And I was really troubled to get the national student auditions information for our region and find out that there's absolutely forbidden use of copies. This is troubling to me as a music teacher and as a musician.
Well, I'll address it first by saying no matter what the use in the professional world is, copies are illegal. And we have well over 10,000 students singing auditions every year in NATS. And with that, that's probably one of the largest numbers of people that, of any organization I know, that are going through an auditions process every year. And so in our discussions about copyright with our attorneys, among the board, and with others in our profession, it's been our determination and our understanding and our feeling that it's extremely important for those of us who are performing music to ensure that the next generation has new music to perform. And if we are not supporting our colleagues who are making music and creating music and composing music for us to perform by purchasing legal copies and ensuring that we are promoting that practice, then we risk a future in which that doesn't exist. People find that they can't make a living as a composer. And
my understanding is that the royalties really are very minimal for most composers.
But
perhaps I'm misinformed, but
well, I mean, but a royalty is a royalty, and you can imagine. We can all look in our files at how many copies we may have, and think about, oh well, yeah, if I'd have bought all of these pieces, it might have helped the composer.
Yeah.
No matter how little.
I'm talking about usage, actual usage. So that's where I think we get into trouble, because I own all the music, but in the actual fact of using it in these auditions, I'm told that I can only use the book, yeah. And that doesn't seem fair. Why should I buy 2 books, or I don't understand that thinking.
Well, I want to expound on that for Sharon too, because I own the complete set of the music theater anthologies, and I own a complete digital copy of all of them. I own them all. So I bought them. So I don't bring all the books to school. I bring my tablet and I call whatever I need down from the cloud. But I did purchase all the books. So I understand her feeling about usage. You're asking teachers to carry as many as 12 of those big books around all day, especially for adjuncts who don't have an office and who wander from practice room to practice room. I understand that's a real issue for people.
Yeah. I think the issue is how people individually, personally use their music, their own music. If I have a book and I'm making a copy to use for my own specific purpose, and I'm not, handing it off to my student constantly and those kinds of things, that's allowed under copyright law. However, the problem really comes for NATS in how do we police that? How do we ensure when we're questioned, if we're questioned, that somebody's copy that they're using is really theirs? We don't have any way to know that without seeing the real copy that somebody owns. And that, and I realize the perceived difficulties that creates for people. I also realize that, and this is what I say to everybody, that kind of complains to me about some of the issues related to copyright is that there, at every audition, there are hundreds of students walking around. I make my students carry their own music. I know that that takes a chance, you know, that they're not going to get it all together, but I'm pretty good about that. I also realize there are lots of people running around that can turn pages for accompanists who, you know, realize that they, you know, and they can carry, the student can carry the books. The accompanist doesn't have to carry the books around. And there are lots of people that turn, you know, can turn pages well, and are there standing around, walking in with their students or, you know, their friends into different auditions that can turn pages. And those are the two biggest complaints I get, you know. I can't turn all my, you know, I can't turn pages, I got a bad page turn. Or I can't, you know, ask my accompanist to carry around 5,000 books, you know, to a NATS audition. So that, you know, I know those aren't answers people want to hear, but they're the answers that work, you know, to allow us to stay within the bounds of the law, really. We feel an obligation as an organization to uphold the copyright law, and there is a lot of misperception about what fair use is, what I'm allowed to do or not allowed to do with copyrighted music. I will say also that we have made efforts, and I have made personal contacts with publishers to try to work with them to work through some kind of arrangements that we could make that would allow us certain types of access to making copies or doing a variety of things. And when every time I've done that, I end up with their lawyers. I end up with basically we're bound by the copyright law just like you are bound by the copyright law. They really can't, in their frame of mind, in their business mind, and in the legal aspects related to their business, just give us a blanket access to so many copies of music from that publisher. It's just not something that's going to happen, but I have made those efforts to try to work with individual publishers and seek to make some agreements like that.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for that clarification, because I know it is a continued conversation. Unfortunately, we're past the bottom of our hour, so I want to thank our panelists, Carole Blankenship, Alan Henderson, David Sabella-Mills, and remind our NATS chatters that the next chat is Melissa Cross. If you don't know this fabulous woman, please join us. Her topic will be heavy metal, overtone, not overuse, and that will be February 8th. And I, of course, want to thank Inside View Press for sponsoring this season's NATS Chats. So thank you for joining us. If you didn't get your question answered, don't hesitate to email Alan Henderson. The couple questions I see would be best directed at him, and you can find his email address on the nats.org website. So thank you, everyone, so much for joining us, and we're going to say good night now.
Thanks.